All right, now the real work begins. This is the kind of work, my friends, where you really want to wear some gloves. So I'm going to do the glove thing for a little while. This is really grunt work, but it has to be done. So I'm not going to remove this transformer, but I am going to see if I can't lift it up just a little bit so I can get under it a bit. If it doesn't work, well, I'll at least take this end bell off here and I'll paint it, because that needs to be black. Jeez, the surprises never end on this radio. I don't know what the hell that is, some kind of bug larva. So I have already taken the wire brush to a lot of this, and I got bad news. It isn't going to get much better than this. So all I can really do is start with the rust stopper now. It's not going to do a lot of good to keep at this with a wire brush. It's just going to make a mess and maybe get metal particles down in stuff. I was real careful when I did it, but I still want to, it's time to move on to other things now. Before I almost forgot about these guys. I want to remove these grommets for that push button assembly, and here's one of the screws. So this flanged bushing goes like this on the skinny side. This one has a fat side and a skinny side, okay? Flange bushing goes on the skinny side, and it comes in from inside the chassis. Then the screw with a fender washer comes in and goes into the bushing like that, and then screws into the chassis, okay? And it compresses this. It'll compress this bushing just a little bit, but this flanged bushing will prevent it from compressing it more than it's supposed to. So I really like that sort of design. A lot of radios use it. I'm never going to get all of this pitting off of here. I'm just not going to do it. So that the paint that I'm going to use on this is a nice stainless steel paint, and it's not absolutely smooth and glossy. It actually has kind of a matte, sort of rough, satiny finish, and that'll mask a lot of this. Although you'll be able to see it, it will mask some of it. So I've used it. You see me use it on other radios. Let's start putting on some of this stuff so it can sit overnight, kind of begin to do its thing. Now remember, this stuff dries clear except where there's rust. I'm going to use a bigger brush because I don't want to take the rest of my life to do this. And you don't have to go crazy, but don't be stingy either when you use this stuff. I've mentioned that before, and it will make this look very funky with the black. But it's okay. It's going to stop all this nasty rust. It'll stop it in its tracks. And the paint will stick to it. Now, even though this won't be perfect when it's done, this will look like a different radio. It will not look like the same radio, I promise. I will probably shoot this tomorrow. I'm eager to get this one done. As I mentioned, this poor fella's been waiting a long time, and I've been waiting a long time to start working on some of mine. And I'm thinking real seriously about building one of my amplifier kits. I'm kind of excited about doing those. I've got two Ella kits. Those are Japanese kits. They're really nice, really, really well made. I mean, the best made kit I've ever seen. I haven't built a lot of kits, but I've seen them. And when I was a kid, I used to build model airplane kits, so I know what a quality kit is and what it means to have all the best components in the kit and that kind of thing. And that's certainly what these Ella kits are. Now, I also have a kit that I bought at Tube Depot, and it looks pretty cool in its own way. 16LS, I think it's called. It's another tube amp, but it uses, you know, really common sort of tubes you wouldn't associate with audiophile stuff. But I've heard good reviews of it, and I bought the cabinet too from the manufacturer. I got a hold of the manufacturer and bought the cabinet for this thing, and so it should be pretty cool. I'll set up a really nice. It's got a real vintage look. I'll set up a nice little amp with that too. Something I can play with. I've seen a couple demos on YouTube for it, and it looks pretty good actually. So I'm kind of stoked about building some amp kits. I got a couple of preamp, little preamp kits and a little DAC kit to build too. And I don't know. I've never done electronics kits before. I know a lot of you have because you were probably around during the Heathkit days. I just missed that time. I mean, they were still making some kits when I got involved. I think Zenith bought them, but I missed the heyday for Heathkit. Oh boy, I sure did build a lot of model airplanes. Those kinds of kits I'm really familiar with. And my trouble was I couldn't fly the dang thing, so I'd build them, and they were gorgeous. I mean, really, I'm not patting myself on the back here. I'm good at building model airplanes. I just couldn't fly them. And so I'd spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This is back in the 70s and 80s now, too. Remember, hundreds of dollars meant something different then than it does now. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these airplanes. And countless hours building them. Invest a lot of my personal pride in the things. And then take them out and try to fly them. Partly because I'm half blind, partly because I'm not that coordinated. I'd crash them. Usually on landing, or I'd do something stupid like forget that when it's coming toward me all the controls are backward, and I'd screw up and crash the plane. But usually it was on landing. I just never got the hang of it. I know how it works. I mean, I've studied aircraft, and I know a lot about aircraft, but I just couldn't make it. You know, it's like I know about guitars too, but I can't seem to play guitar. We all have our skills, right? I don't know what mine are yet. I'll figure it out soon. Now I'm kind of doing a shotgun approach on this radio because there's lots of little pits and stuff that I want to get this stuff down into. You can see it already darkening to that purple I've talked about before. And it won't hurt this radio at all to have this stuff where there isn't rust. It won't hurt it really at all. Funny thing about rust is, if you've done cars, funny thing about rust is once it starts, man, that's it. So, and if it starts and you manage to get it stopped, then you want to keep it that way. You want to, because rust will spread even if, like I live in a dry climate, if rust is started, rust will continue here, even though it's less likely for us to start where I'm at. And certainly it progresses more slowly here. But if this radio ever found its way to a humid climate, if I didn't stop this rust, it would take off and this chassis would be rusting to nothing. I've got 5 gallons of Evapo rust, but you got to dip stuff, and I still haven't been able to bring myself to dipping a chassis that's not utterly bare. When I built my AM transmitter, I built it from a chassis I took out of an old Zenith console radio, and that chassis had some corrosion on it, so I dipped it in Evapo rust, but it was an absolutely bare chassis, and it was pretty cool. There were some issues with it, but it made life easier in some ways. Some of the pits on this are deep enough that you want to lay it on a little bit heavy. This was home for the mices for a long time. I'm hoping that the paint will sort of seal some of that up so it doesn't smell so bad after I paint it. Believe it or not, I don't see that many chassis that are real rusty. It's not very common in the West. The climate is drier, so the humidity doesn't affect the radios. What I do see are a lot of cabinets that are utterly trashed because the wood dries out more readily here and cracks. And so a lot of the radios that I see, the veneer is shot, the glue has dried out, and they're coming apart. I've only seen one other chassis quite this rusty, and that was a recent one, and that was a Westinghouse I did, and I painted that chassis too. Interesting, where the sticker was, it's not rusty. I know it looks sloppy. It looks like I'm not doing a good job. That's just how this stuff works. It flows out pretty well as it dries, so you don't have to worry about it too much. We'll let that cure overnight and we'll see what we come up with tomorrow. I'm going to try a little experiment this morning. Usually I spray paint chassis, so chassis like this will usually get spray painted with a stainless steel paint. This time though, I'm going to try something different. I want to make that process easier on myself, and I want to see if I can brush this stuff on without leaving serious brush strokes or anything like that. If I can get away with doing this, well then I have to do a lot less masking, and I can also do more, there's less waste, and I can do more detailed work like getting around corners and stuff like that, and not have to worry about masking it off. So let's give this a try. Now I like the spray version of this quite a bit, but I've never tried the liquid version. This I guess I really haven't shown you the dried rust converting paint. So you see it is dry there. It's done a pretty good job. And one thing I've never mentioned about this stainless paint is that it helps prevent rust all by itself too. I don't know how it does it, but I've used stainless paint on cars for a couple of decades, before I quit working on cars. And I was always amazed at how well it would prevent rust. Okay, so you open the can, and it's kind of swirled like this. There's a lot of stainless pigment in there. So I'm going to grab a big screwdriver and I'll do some stirring. All right. Ooh, there's a lot of pigment in the bottom of this. With this kind of paint, it's real important to get that pigment mixed up with the paint because, see that? Because that pigment is what gives it its characteristics of preventing rust and gives it that nice metallic look. Ooh, this stuff's nice and thick. I don't want to get too many air bubbles in it, so I have to be careful as I stir it. What I might do is put this in a jar, put some in a jar, and then seal the rest up tight. It's getting more and more consistent, so it's pretty much got most of the pigment in suspension now. It will settle out, so you have to stir this stuff every now and then. Boy, this would be, I have sprayed this kind of stuff, and I actually managed to spray it through an HVLP. Yeah, this is going to work nice. This is not going to be a problem. I'm not going to paint this whole panel because it's not seen and it's not needed. But I want to see, I'm doing this as a test panel just to see. If it flows out okay, well then I should be all right. Yeah. Now this will leave brush marks if you keep brushing it after it's beginning to set, because then the pigment, you can see the pigment definitely will streak. Yeah, this will make it really easy to do this chassis. Much easier than spraying it. Spraying it can be faster, but it's all the prep that you have to do, and that prep has to be exactly right, or it shows all over the radio. It's very tempting, however, to go back and adjust and paint in different areas and stuff. Maybe once you get it on there and on there decent, just leave it alone. I wonder how well the foam brushes would work on this. What I need to do is make a little cardboard disc that I can set down in there. I wonder if I can try doing that. I think it's going to work. You do see some brush strokes. I'm thinking that I might go over the second time to try and take care of those. This stuff takes a long time to dry. Alright, I'm going to keep going on this, and then I will tune you back in once I get a little further. This is my first pass. It does show some brush marks, but nothing I can't take care of in a second pass. And I should be able to do pretty well. As I said, perfection is not what I'm after here. If I wanted perfectly smooth and if it was imperative that there be absolutely no brush marks, then I would have sprayed, but that takes a lot more time to prep and a lot of time to clean my spray equipment and stuff like that. So I kind of like this. I think this method's going to work fine. We'll do a second pass. If I really hate it, then I can always spray after, but I think this is going to look real good. This stuff says to recoat within an hour or wait 24 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and put the second coat on now. It's been about a half hour. Oh, what the hell. I might as well go ahead and put some paint on this tuning condenser and clean it up a little bit. No need for it to be an eyesore if it doesn't have to be. And this stuff works well enough that I feel like this is going to dress it up some. Well, I see Buster has decided to join me. Buster, do you know how to paint? You know how to paint, buddy? Buster doesn't know how to do much but eat and chase Freddy around and cause me problems. That is pretty much Buster's whole repertoire of activities. This is not intended again to make it perfect, just to make it better. I know I say that all the time, but that's because it's true. If you make all the different parts of the radio look just a little bit better, or work just a little bit better, or better in some way, then the end result is that you'll have a radio that is better, and one that people will want to use and want to keep. And as collectors and enthusiasts of radios, I hope that our goal is to want to keep and use our radios. And we want to spread the word so other people keep and use theirs. If you take away the big eyesores, then you take away the things that draw people's eyes toward them, and pretty soon they're not noticeable anymore at all. Now, anybody that looks real close at this will know that it's been painted, but they're not likely to look real close because there's not going to be the ugly rust or ugly black color to draw their attention. That's the whole idea. I used to have a real estate license, and it was called curb appeal. The whole idea with, doing minor improvements all over a house, or even on a car or whatever, is to make it look good from a distance. So they call it curb appeal with the house because the house should look good from the curb. That will attract people to want to look closer. But once they get closer look, they've already begun to accept the house and like the house. And that's what curb appeal does. And so what you tell someone wanting to sell their house is focus on curb appeal, get the house looking good from the street, and then focus on the other stuff. Because if you can't get people to come into the house at all in the first place, then there's no point. All right, I think I beat this one to death. It looks quite a bit better than it did without the big black spots on it. This paint does like to streak a little bit, but those streaks kind of fade as it dries. So I think it's all right. It didn't turn out too badly. It looks okay. I think it's going to be all right. I've gone ahead and put that bracket on for the tuning condenser. And, you know, you still see the pitting and so forth. I wasn't trying to remove all that. I just wanted to make it look more like a chassis and less like a rusty old boat. So not too bad. I left that sticker on there. I know it's only a part of the sticker, but what the hell, I left it on anyway. I think that in cases like this radio, I will probably brush the stuff on from now on. It's a lot easier to do. It takes about the same amount of time, but it's also, I feel like I have a little greater control over getting around things like these cans. So let me take a look at the back side. I think I'll just bring the camera around here and I'll stand over where I'm at. Well, there you go. You can still see the stamped letters and numbers. I think he's going to be happy. I think it looks pretty good. So the next step is to go ahead and mount the push button and the adjustments for the preset tuning into the underside of the chassis. So I'll get started on that. And then I'll get back up on this top side. We're getting fairly close. We are about 3/4 of the way there on this radio. Alright guys, I know part 4 has been kind of short, but this is a good place to wrap it up. Next time we're going to get to work on the preset components, those slug tuners and those trimmer capacitors, and get those parts ready to put back in the radio. So for now, we'll just close this down and get ready to do the assembly. So from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael, and that's all for now.